Today, we are working on reclaiming your power. So, what do? We are tapping what I call flow tapping. It is just continuous tapping. And while I walk you through some powerful strategies, concepts, reframes to help you to be the best and most powerful version of you, you tap along with me. And we're going to be doing quite a bit of targeted tapping today to help you to reclaim your power. And a lot of that is remembering who you truly are. So, when we come into this world, we know who we are. We remember our connection to source. We remember that we are infinitely powerful beings, that we have access to all the universal intelligence, that we have creative powers and creative abilities that are nothing but profoundly magical, that we are the co-creators of our world. We came in with that knowledge. And then life happens. And then our brains that come in so open in theta state and then move through beta and into alpha state as we grow. But our brains are so wide open. They are just like almost like a blank slate as we come in. And then it is our environment that teaches us how to survive and mostly how to survive. So our brain is taking in so much information, and it's not about thriving. It's about surviving. How do I survive in this world? And particularly when we come in and human babies are at the mercy of whatever external forces there are, we live or die by the nurture and the care and the protection that we are provided. We can't survive without that for at least the first sort of 3 years of our life, and like longer. You put a 3-year-old out in the wilderness, it ain't coming back unless somebody goes and gets it. So we're helpless when we come in that context. It's all by design. So, and then depending on what our environment teaches us, demonstrates to us, and how we learn to behave as a consequence, then these patterns that we develop from what we're exposed to in our environment then really shape our lives. Now, the beauty of the design is that our brains have plasticity. So even though you have learned identities and behaviors that were hardwired into your brain that were all about survival when you were like very, very small, and those ages 0 to 7 are so impressionable. And we learn to behave in certain ways that it is all about acceptance, love, approval, and getting what we need the most. So if you grew up in an environment that you needed to behave in a particular way to stay safe, it's all about safety in those early years, then that becomes a hardwired part of your behavior. And you will just repeat that over and over and over and over, unless you deliberately do something to recognize and identify that you're not 4 or 5 or 8 or 10 anymore, that you are no longer at the mercy. You're no longer the 8-year-old who's being shut down by the parent or the authority figure, or who was avoiding the alcoholic father, or who is made to feel inconsequential and less than, and don't speak unless you're spoken to. And all the stuff around money and wealth and and how you perceived that. And a lot of it is about acceptance and love and fitting in, belonging. So whatever you felt or you learned you needed to do, however you learned you needed to be in the world, in order to win friends, to stay safe, to protect yourself, to get on in the world, that is the behavior that you will continue to exhibit throughout your life, because that's what you learned as a kid. And that doesn't change. Well, it does change if you change it, but you have to deliberately go, wait, okay, I'm not four anymore, or I'm not 8 anymore. And these behaviors, are they appropriate? Are they supporting me? Are they an essential part of my survival anymore? Okay. So if you think about it from that context, and then you think about, when was the first time you felt, you remember feeling helpless, hopeless, powerless, feeling like you had no control over your environment? Now, you don't remember that as a baby. As a baby, you're kind of innocent. It doesn't even matter. It doesn't, unless you were abused as a baby, it's not even like a thing that's like, oh, I'm helpless and hopeless. Oh my God, the world's a scary place. Look at the babies when you see them. If they're nurtured and cared for and loved and given the love and the essential foods and care that they need, then they have no perception that, oh my God, the world's a scary place and I'm vulnerable. They're babies. But as you grow up and as you grow older, and life happens and things happen, and you realize that you may not have a lot of agency as a child, and it comes back to agency. When you feel and you realize that you don't have agency, and maybe there are situations and circumstances where you did feel unsafe, where you felt like there was no protection, where you felt like you were at the mercy of your environment, then it's important that you identify, what decisions did I make in my subconscious mind as a consequence of experiencing that in my life as a child. So it's those limiting decisions. So this is where a lot of people choose to stay small. If I stay small and I'm invisible, then I'm safe. If I behave in this way, then I get attention, but it's not, but when I get that attention, it's not the kind of attention that I want in some context. So if you were bullied as a kid, then some kids will learn to lash out and protect themselves and fight back. Other kids, speaking from experience, will just shrink and stay small and quiet and not speak up, because speaking up meant that you got bullied. But if you just shrank into the background, yeah, believe it or not, that's me, believe it or not, the gregarious person who's just always on camera, there's still, and I'm still working on this stuff, I've been working on it for a while, but there's still a little girl inside who was bullied at school, who just wants acceptance, love, and approval. The performer. I'm a performer. And yes, it's part of my innate personality, but it's also part of learned behavior, because it got me liked and accepted. So, and all of this is about recognizing, going back in your history and recognizing, where did I modify my behavior in a way that was about safety, acceptance, love, approval, belonging. And one more thing before we do some targeted tapping is that you also need to remember that your amygdala, the primitive part of the brain, is hardwired for survival, and that it wasn't that long ago in human history that if you were an outcast, if you were ostracized, it wasn't just lonely and painful, it meant death. Like, if you were cast out from the tribe, if you did something so dastardly that the tribe decided that you were no longer a part of the tribe, good luck out in the wilderness out there. Tribes were tribes as a matter of survival. So you had to fit in. So that part of the brain is really hardwired to fit in and belong. So you modify your behavior. You learn how to get along. You learn what's appropriate according to your tribe and what's inappropriate. Now, think about this from the context of something like failure and success. So somebody grows up, say they grow up in a wealthy environment. Now, in that wealthy environment, the normal behavior, particularly people who are self-made and they've worked and generated a wealth from their own hard work, then that environment will demonstrate wealthy behaviors and you naturally adopt those wealthy behaviors. Beyond that, being wealthy mentally and being accepted by the tribe, you have the identity of a wealthy person. You naturally adopt the identity of a wealthy person. You exhibit wealthy behaviors. And that is not just about picking up and becoming a product of your environment. It is also a part of, my tribe identifies as wealthy. So I need to identify as wealthy. So you adopt those behaviors that continue to create wealth, hopefully. So there are, of course, of anomalies, like there is no one size fits all. It's a complex equation. But yeah, then you look at somebody who grows up in an environment that it has lack and scarcity everywhere, and the finances are a struggle. Yes, you cannot demonstrate something that you don't know and understand. True. You cannot be programmed. You cannot pick up a wealth program from a lack and consciousness environment. It's just not possible. How on earth can you learn a behavior that is not demonstrated to you, or a consciousness that is not demonstrated to you? If you think of Robert Kiyosaki and Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and that his poor dad was his father, his birth father, and his poor dad was a teacher and an educator, and he was part of the system. Get a good education, get a job, work hard, get a mortgage, work all your life until retirement. Hopefully you'll have a few years left to enjoy at the end of it, but you'll never be rich. It was his friend's father who was the rich dad. How Robert Kiyosaki developed a wealth consciousness was his friend's father basically mentored him and his son together to develop a wealth consciousness. And that's why Robert Kiyosaki is wealthy today, because of his friend's father. Rich dad, poor dad. So all of this is a very complex equation. Now, in relation to reclaiming your power and realizing that you have agency, the thing is that no matter what your situation right now, your action and your decisions from this point forward will create your future. I don't care where you're at right now. I don't care how bad things might be for you. From this point forward, whatever you do matters. Your behavior matters. So you shift your identity, because your identity creates your behavior. Your behavior creates your results. So you shift your identity, you go back to the source, you shift the beliefs, and the identity beliefs are the most impactful on your behavior. You shift that, then it'll be like a domino effect. This is the way this works. So recognizing that no matter what you have or haven't done, have or haven't achieved, stop beating yourself up. Stop allowing yourself to wallow and stay stuck and go, right, okay, maybe I could have done better. Maybe I could have made better decisions. Maybe I could have done a lot of things differently. But from this point forward, I have agency over my life. From this point forward, I am going to determine what behaviors, what actions are going to get me the results that I want. And I'm going to deliberately create my life from this point forward according to better quality decisions, better quality choices, better quality behaviors, better quality actions, because I'm not a tree. I can move. I can change. I don't have to stay stuck. I get to choose my life from this point forward. I get to choose what I create from this point forward. And I choose freedom. I choose wealth. I choose health. I choose love. I choose prosperity. I choose impact. I choose influence. And at the end of the day, it all comes back to what feels safe. And if it doesn't feel safe, why? Why have you made the decision that something doesn't feel safe, that wealth doesn't feel safe, that being successful doesn't feel safe? Why do you shrink away from the limelight? Why do you stay invisible? Why are you playing small? Why? These are really powerful questions that when you ask yourself and when you decide and set the intention to be honest with yourself and refuse to take and refuse to stay stuck, that's when everything starts to change. So, gosh, I've blabbed a lot, haven't I? This is a good one for boundaries and staying in your power and not shrinking, even though we're awesome beings. Exactly. So, let's start by tapping on the side of the hand with some really targeted tapping, and repeat after me. Actually, keep tapping on the side of the hand. Firstly, I want you to think about when you first experienced feeling powerless or at the mercy of your environment. Like you had to perform or conform to a specific kind of behavior to stay safe, to be a part of the tribe, to belong, to not feel lonely or ostracized or be criticized or judged or humiliated. It's a lot, man. See, this thing, it's a lot. Are you ready to forgive yourself yet for all the things that you feel like you should have done better or could have done better or that you're beating yourself up for? It's not easy. I'm not going to say it's hard because that's just a judgment call. But this is complex and complicated. And you're here figuring it out. Go you. So, back to where you felt you had no agency. You had no power over the outcomes in your life, that you had to modify behavior. Okay, think about that. Now, can you see a pattern that has emerged in other areas of your life as a consequence of feeling powerless? Now, if you've never actually thought about it in this context before, this realization could be a massive turning point for you. This work is so powerful. So I want you to think about that time where you first felt powerless, where you learned, this is learned helplessness. Even though I felt helpless and powerless, I deeply and completely love and accept all of me. Even though I felt like I had no control over that part of my life, and I had to modify my behavior to stay safe, I deeply and completely love and accept all of me. even though I didn't feel safe and I felt powerless and helpless, I choose to know that I'm not that little person anymore. And I'm ready to leave that little person in the past. And I deeply and completely love and accept all of me right now. I felt powerless. I felt helpless. I didn't feel safe. I couldn't do what I wanted to do. I couldn't be my true self. I had to change my behavior to stay safe. They wouldn't accept me the way I was. They judged me and criticized me. And I didn't feel safe. I felt powerless and helpless. I just wanted their love and acceptance and approval. I just wanted their love. I just wanted to feel like I belonged. I just wanted to feel safe. So I buried my true self. I became the person I needed to be to stay safe. And I've been playing this out in my life since I was little. I destroy, uncreate, and delete feeling powerless. I destroy, uncreate, and delete feeling helpless. I destroy, uncreate, and delete feeling unsafe. I destroy, uncreate, and delete feeling powerless and helpless. I destroy, uncreate, and delete needing the acceptance and approval of others. I destroy, uncreate, and delete needing to belong. I destroy, uncreate, and delete feeling like I have no agency over my life. I'm not that little person anymore. That little person was so vulnerable. I don't have to be vulnerable anymore. I destroy, uncreate, and delete being vulnerable. I choose to know I have agency. I choose to know if I want to, I can change my life. I choose to know I don't have to perform to stay safe anymore. I choose to remember who I truly am. I choose to know if I transform my identity and transform my behavior, I can live any life I want. I can live any life I choose by design. I choose to be the person I need to be to create my life by design. I choose to become the person I need to be and act like the person I need to be to produce the results I desire. Because it's my action that produces the results. I choose to know I have agency over my life. I choose to leave that small, unsafe, vulnerable version of me in the past. And step into the powerful person who has agency and influence over my results. It's not always going to work out. It's not always going to be my version of perfect. There'll be ups and downs. That's life. But it's my actions that cause my results. It's my behavior that creates my future. So I choose to reclaim my power now. I remember who I truly am. I remember where I came from. I remember that I am a creative force, creating my life moment by moment by what I focus on, by the decisions that I make, by the choices that I make, by the actions and behaviors that I exhibit. I have the ability and the power to create my life by design. And from this moment forward, I take deliberate action while focusing on what I want to create. And I fall in love with the journey. So just keep tapping. Just looking at the notes that I wrote late last night. So just a couple of other things before we wrap it up today. Arm yourself with the knowledge that you need, because you don't know what you don't know. And if you haven't achieved something yet, then you're not going to know how it's going to work out. There's things that you need to learn. There's skills that you need to develop. There's characteristics and traits that you need to build within you. It's all there. The seed of everything of who you wish to become is already within you. It's what you nurture. It's what you feed. That will either feed the scarcity or feed the wealth, the abundance, the achievement, the impact. So what are you going to feed from this point forward? It's all within you. And if there's gaps in your knowledge, then figure it out. There is no limit, there is no, we are living well beyond the information age. We are now in the transformation age. So anything that you want to know, it's available. Geez, just go and ask AI. We are living in extraordinary times where you have access to like 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 times more information than the Pentagon had 20 years ago. I'm not joking. That is the power that you have and hold. So whatever you want to know, It's out there. Learn what you need to learn. Develop the skills you need to develop. Yeah, it's uncomfortable. You're going to have to get out of your comfort zone. You're going to have to feel awkward at times. And you're going to have to face your fears. Sorry, just the way it is. And embrace the uncertainty. There are no guarantees in life. You will make choices and decisions that don't work out the way you want them to. Yeah, so what did you learn? Unless you're a brain surgeon, and please God, if you're a brain surgeon, then make sure that you develop the skills under somebody who's a really good brain surgeon. But you obviously assess the risks according to the actions that you take. You assess the environment, you assess the benefits versus the risks of your actions. You plan, you prepare, you set yourself up for success. And you embrace the uncertainty because there is no certainty. As far as I take action, let's look at what the result was. So don't take risks that you are not willing to bear the consequences and understand. So it's risk management, basically, calculated risk. But don't let that inhibit you and paralyze you. See, here's the thing. Rich people, they plan to win. 97, 98% of the population, they're playing not to lose. And that is a recipe for never achieving your goals and dreams. There's got to be a balance in there somewhere. But if you're playing not to lose, then your ability to achieve your vision, your goal, your dream, particularly if you have a big, audacious goal, which every highly successful and wealthy person is audacious. They look at the impossible and they stare it down and they find a way to make it possible. And you've got that ability too. Anybody who has done anything, you have the capacity and the ability. You don't have their traits, their characteristics, their gifts, their talents. That's them. But you have the ability to build whatever it is that your heart desires. Start where you're at. Use what you have. Do what you can. Believe in yourself. I wrote down, you've got to play the odds. You do nothing, you get nothing. You risk nothing, you get nothing. Getting out of bed every day is a risk, man. We don't know what's around the corner. So, I think I've covered a lot today. Know that, just always come back to your agency. Where is my agency? Where have I given my power away? And reclaim your power. Decide from this point forward, you will reclaim your power. You will create your life by design. Now, before we wrap it up today, if you ever want to work with me, I have a variety of different options. You can go to margueritacoach.com. The link is in the description below. That is margueritacoach.com. And you can check out the various options there. And I love you loads. Keep tapping. Keep doing this work. And find the behaviors and the patterns that are keeping you playing small. Where did you learn it? Release your emotional attachment to it. Get on with being the best and most powerful version of you, because you have the ability to create anything you put your mind to. Anything. Believe it. It's true. All right. Love you loads. I'll see you again next week. Ciao for now.